Right to be Read podcast, episode number 39. Interview with Jill Sanders.
You are listening to the Right to be Read podcast, and this is your host, Ani Alexander.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Right to be Read podcast, the podcast that inspires and encourages writers. I'm your host, Ani Alexander, and I'm really happy to have you back. Or if you're the first-time listener, I'm even happier that you found me, and I hope that you will stay with me for the upcoming episodes. Today's episode is very inspiring, and I'm really excited to present you the interview, not only because the writer I will be talking to is a New York Times and USA Today bestselling author, but because she's reached those heights being completely self-published by herself and starting from scratch. So today I'm going to speak to Jill Sanders. As I already mentioned, she is the New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of the Pride series, Secret series, and West series romance novels. Having sold over 150,000 books within 6 months of her first release, she continues to lure new readers with her sweet and sexy stories. Her books are available in every English-speaking country and are now being translated to 6 different languages and recorded for audiobooks. Before we start, I would like to apologize in advance for the relatively poor quality of sound, but I did my best and cleaned it as much as possible, and I hope it will not distract you too much. Okay, let's start already. Welcome to the show, Jill. I'm really honored to have you at the Right to be Read podcast.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, I just would like to start from the, let's say relatively beginning. As far as I know, you had a successful IT career before you discovered that you had a talent as a writer. So I was just wondering, how did you discover that? What was the story behind?
Well, I initially started writing shortly after my mother passed away almost 10 years ago. And I just did it to fill time, and I had 2 small kids at that time, so I didn't have a lot of time, but I did take that time to myself. And then, business had to take place. I mean, I had to pay the bills and we had to support our children. And so I was, like you said, in the IT world and did that mainly and just wrote on the side. I sat on it forever until we moved to Texas, and we were helping my father-in-law recover from his wife's death. So we moved to Texas as a family and thought, we'll get a job there. And we moved in such a small town that there were no IT jobs. My husband finally did find a job, and so that was helpful. And then a year or 2 later, he lost his job. And we were about to have to move back into the city to find work when I was talking to my twin sister, and she had read everything I have ever written. And she's helped me, just encouraged me and been my support. And she said, "Why don't you publish your books?" And I thought, no, me? I can't do that, And she said, well, it's that or move back to the city, which you don't want to do. And so that evening I put my first book, Finding Pride, up on Amazon, and the rest is kind of history. It snowballed from there. So.
Okay, and when was it exactly? Which year?
October of 2000, or actually November of 2012. But those were the times when kind of Amazon boomed and yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't really start seeing success until I hit about my 3rd book. And that was about 4 or 5 months later that I put my 2nd book up. And then the 3rd book went up about 7 months after I put my 1st book up.
Okay, I see. So, you said that you had the books ready and written. Was it difficult to kind of format it for Kindle and get a cover and the small things which are kind of relatively small but necessary to do before publishing on Amazon?
Right. It was, a learning process for sure. The first time I put it up, there was no formatting. The book cover was the wrong size. The fonts were invisible or couldn't be seen when you switch your Kindle to black. So it definitely was a long process for me. As well as just any growing experience. I mean, I learned that you need a really good editor. You need really good book covers. It's just hit and miss, and you kind of learn as you go along.
Okay. And did you get any negative reviews? Because in the very beginning, you had some self-doubts, your sister encouraged you, but you yourself did not think that you could do that. So, what happened with the review part? Did you get positive reviews which encouraged you to move forward, or did you get some negativity coming your way?
I think I had more negative to begin with, and I can't tell you how many times I would go to my husband or my kids. Oh, they hate me. Oh my goodness, why am I doing this? But you know what? I took the challenge. I don't know if a lot of people, if you cave, you'll never know. And so that's the one thing I will tell an inspiring author is push past it, because you can overcome anything. And I took those negative reviews and I learned from them, and I chose to kind of use them as my fuel. Mm-hmm. And I pushed past them, and I am so grateful I did. And then the positive reviews started coming in, and my family was so supportive, and it really did help seeing those positive reviews. I actually spend every morning, every day looking at reviews. I read them, the negative, the good, the bad, everything. And I learn from them, and I build my characters, and I build my books based on those reviews.
Okay, I see. But let's go back and just imagine what happened when you put your very first book on Amazon. You put it there on next morning. I presume you went to the dashboard to see how the sales were doing or how many downloads you had. And what did you see?
It was kind of a shock to me, because it was a new book and a new author for Amazon. And back then, they did a big push for those kind of things. So I instantly had more book sales than I thought I would ever have, which helped and hurt, because this was in all essence an unedited version of my book. And so I get a lot of teachers who say, oh my goodness, what are you in grade school? And so that hurt, as far as instantly I saw my sales slip, and until I could afford a full editor, because remember at this time we were hurting financially. Mm-hmm. And so when I finally had sold enough books, the second I sold enough that I can afford an editor, it went straight to the editor. And once it was re-edited, I got a new book cover and kind of republished it. And it was like a brand new thing. And so again, it was good sales. And that really helped, because at that point I had put my second book up. So yes, the first night, I put the book up, I sat there and watched. I refreshed my screen constantly. Oh, I got one sale. Oh, I got two. So yes, it was nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I had the same. So it's just, Yeah, and here I would just like to mention, to ask listeners to pay attention to the fact that investing in your book is very important. And I truly believe that the investment you made to the editor and to the book cover designer were like the biggest and best things you did as the first steps, because I'm sure they affected very positively what happened next.
Absolutely. It's like you have a car, you need to buy gas, you need to buy oil, you need to maintain that car. If you don't, it's not going to drive you to work. So that's exactly what you need to do. You're correct. So.
And when you started, in the very beginning, I presume you did not have your own audience because you were not a blogger, and did you have a presence online, or did you have a base where you would start getting readership?
No, I had nothing. There were a couple websites out there that helped new authors. And I did a lot of reading. I started friending any and all authors I could on Facebook, which was a great thing. Goodreads was a huge help for me in the beginning. I asked questions and people didn't treat me terrible for asking a stupid question, which, like I said, there is no stupid questions out there in this line of business. And so those kind of sites, I did start doing my own little blog, which quickly snowballed because I would interview other authors and then I would review books. And all of a sudden I had like 2,000 review requests from authors. And I couldn't read that fast as I'm trying to write my own books.
Yeah.
So I had to stop doing that after a while. I just didn't have the time. And the blog I eventually switched over because again, I'm trying to focus on writing, and I'm getting about a book and a half written each month, which my readers just absolutely love, that they don't have to wait 6 months to a year to read my next installment. So
yeah, that's exactly. In my previous interviews with successful writers and with people who know well the industry, many advise to write in series and to ship quite fast. So that's exactly what you're doing here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, and in this case, let's go to the moment. I mean, when did this happen? When did you hit the New York Times bestsellers list? And was it still a self-published books, or you ended up with traditional publisher at some point?
And I'm still fully self-published, and so every book I have is published by me. I'll tell you what actually changed, what flipped over for me is when I brought my husband on board. He is a super genius with cover design, with marketing. He locked himself in a room for an entire month, read every article, read every book, watched every interview from other authors, and he then turned around and built out new covers for all of my books. So every cover that I have has been because of my husband's design. Mm-hmm. So, and then like that next week, we switched all the covers to my Pride series to the new covers. And that's when I shot up. The other thing that happened was I contacted lots of authors. Remember, I've been doing this since the beginning on Facebook. And I happened to start mentioning to authors, hey, I've friended you. I just would love to chat with you. And I would love to, have a moment of your time. And I had a really great response from Dana Martin. And Dana messaged me back and she said, oh my gosh, Jill, you're the person I've been looking for. I want to do a box set. And so we collaborated, and it took about a year. And we did this huge box set, and that was the first time we hit New York Times, the first time I hit New York Times. So it was exciting that it boosted me to that next level. And, it's been rolling ever since. So.
Okay, so here you have people who kind of were next to you and by your side, and you had this in-house exceptional support, which is a very big plus, because very often you end up working with people like literary agents or, the designers, etc., who are not really that interested in your personal success. So Correct. Here you had this, the knowledge, the skill, plus the personal support, emotional support, which many are lacking, and it's like the ideal solution for things.
Correct. Yes, it is so important. I know I can only speak for myself, but I'm somewhat of an introvert. And so, I'm happily sitting in my pajamas in my office and just spending the day looking at the computer screen. So it does take a lot to put yourself out there and talk to these other authors, because they're the best ones to do this, to help and support you, because they're going through the same thing. And so that I have still these ladies, all 10 of them, are just such a great support group. As well as the last couple months, I've gone to several big book conferences and met wonderful ladies there as well, and have actually become very, very good friends with a lot of them. And I honestly think I'll be friends for life with these ladies regardless. And they've helped as well. So just the support of your family, the support of friends who actually understand, because if you have a best friend from high school or whatever, and they're not really into books, they're not going to be that supportive. They may go, oh, that's nice, or that's good. But, another author, when you say, hey, my book is number 1 today, which it is, yay, I have a book that's number 1.
I saw your status on Facebook. Yeah, amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Those other authors are like, oh my goodness, way to go, because they know everything that you've done to achieve that. Whereas somebody who isn't an author thinks, it's this stereotype. They think you just sit around and watch TV or do whatever. But the fact is from sunrise to sunset, I work, unless if I'm with my family. So it is a hardworking job. You do have to put in the hours. You have to put in the money and the effort. So.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone thinks that it's a dream job, but no one really, if he's not in that, no one really understands how much does it take, the time, the effort, the emotions that you're putting in your writing, and at the end of the day, you kind of feel drained after writing the whole day.
I liken it to standing in front of the world butt naked. So you definitely are putting because these characters are you, whether whether you're good, bad, evil, or whatever, everything that is in my characters has come from me. And so that's putting yourself out there, definitely.
Absolutely. So what would you advise if there is a newbie writer who's just starting writing and who's starting from where you did, like, without audience, without in-house support, because let's say their husbands or wives don't really understand how much does it take and what it is exactly. Where should they go to get these really nice support groups and people who might eventually help them out in the beginning?
Well, Goodreads is a very great resource. There are authors out there that you can join the author groups, and there's support. There are questions and there are answers, everything you need to know there. The other thing is, Facebook and Twitter have been invaluable. There are author groups out there that you can join. The number one thing is don't give up. Use those bad things as fuel to get past it. And you couldn't, if you have all that, then there's no reason you can't succeed.
Yeah, and you have to prove those bad reviews wrong, right? So
Correct. You have to either prove them wrong or change it and make them wrong. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, and what about the reader's perspective? How do you engage readers, the ones who read your books?
The same way you kind of do authors, but you gear towards readers. So you go, the Facebook and the Twitter, you go to these conventions. If there are local conventions, you can do that to begin with if you can't fly into other states. There are so many ways, even just going down to your library and requesting your library to carry your own books, business cards. I personally always carry a stack of my books with me, because if I engage somebody, then, hey, you read romance books? Wonderful. Here's a free one. And then I handed a free book to a lady at one of the conventions who was actually she was there for a different convention. She happened to be there for a fertilizer convention, which I thought was hilarious. But I gave her a book and she read it on the airplane back home. And then she messaged me and said, I bought everything that you've ever written now. She said, 100% true fan. So I've earned her fan. And then she turned around and told her mother and her sister and several friends. So it's word of mouth is always great too, but you want to represent yourself as not needy, like, oh, I need you to buy my books, because this isn't about buying books for me. Yeah. It's about you enjoying my stories. And I have so many stories to tell, and I love getting them out of my head. So it's wonderful that other people can enjoy them as well.
So where do you get your inspiration and these so many stories and ideas you have?
Well, if I ever stumble and can't come up with something, my husband is a great background, and my kids. If we'll go on a long drive and we'll just sit there and hash out ideas. And yes, I've got 2 teenage boys who talk about romance books with their mother. So, they think, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this happens or this? When we were in Texas, I now live in Florida. I just moved. And so when we were in Texas, my husband's like, hey, you're in Texas. When you're in Texas, you got to do what the Texans do. And he goes, you need to write a Texas series. And that's where my West series came from. So we just kind of hashed it out. And I came up with the idea of 3 sisters, and he helped me kind of fine tune a couple things. And so it's great to have somebody to bounce ideas back and forth.
Okay, so it's amazing how this family collaboration works. It's just a really nice tandem.
Yes, and I'm very lucky that I have a family like that. So, but I've always had. I am a big daydreamer, and if you see me sitting in a room and I'm just kind of staring off in space, I'm killing somebody in my mind, or I'm putting a couple together, or different things. So it's I've always been a daydreamer.
Yeah, well, amazing. Very nice. I think most of the writers are, actually, because that's how they start. They most probably start in their daydreams and in their thoughts, and then start putting those on paper. Well, with nonfiction writers, it's a bit easy because they can, when they have a website and they have a blog, they can kind of link the ideas and subjects to their books, and then even build a kind of a side business related to the topic, etc., etc. With fiction writers, most of the fiction writers have a challenge and can't really figure out what they should put on their website, and if they are keeping a blog, what they should blog about. Because in the very beginning, now you can blog about your characters and your books because many people have read them and they are in series, etc. But in the very beginning, especially if you are a new writer and people don't know about your books, what can you blog about?
The great thing about this, what we do, is that there's other people out there that do the same thing. So you can always blog about other authors. You can do what you're doing. You can help other authors. You can teach other authors what steps successful authors have done. Learning tools. There's so many things that you can do. You can even just have, if you're a cook, like if you like to cook, list your daily, favorite meals, those kind of things. There's so many things that you can write about or highlight about in a blog that will keep people interested. There's interests all over the world, if you're into cars and those kind of things. So, just find something that you're interested in, and readers will come to that kind of stuff.
I see. And I know that your books have been translated to different languages. Do you know how the foreigners are perceiving your books?
Well, they're actually currently being transferred. They haven't finished yet. But I do know that the West series, my Cowgirl series, seems to be a better seller than a lot of my other series. And I don't know, that's overseas. And I don't know if that's because, the cowboy type thing is really big. It's definitely a niche that people really like overseas. I do have, my whole Pride series is in audio, which is a huge success. And right now, my West series is being recorded right now. I can't wait for them to be done. So that's always another step that they can do. The translations, I'm hoping those take a little bit longer. So if you're looking to get your books translated, it is a lot of money and it is a long time, because it is in essence, they're rewriting your book in a different language. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just, I mean, the person who translates shouldn't be just a person who knows the language. It should be someone who also understands the fiction and the style, and so he tries to keep the maximum of the original version and give out the emotions and the style and everything that you had put originally in this book, which is quite a difficult job, I think.
Yes, and they even have it edited afterwards, so it's like multiple edits, and once it's done, hopefully it'll be just, it'll be just as big sales numbers and as successful as it is here in the English language. I know they do that for audio. Audio can be quicker because it's somebody reading your book, and they, have their audio, everything they need to go for that. So that's, a good step too, that once you start seeing a little bit of success, again, turn that money back into your books. And, what you put into it, you'll get out of it tenfold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. And I would like to talk a bit about the traditional publishers, because, I mean, they are kind of very difficult to get when you're just starting. But when you become successful, they tend to come to you themselves at some point. Yes. So I presume that you've been approached by some traditional publishers, but you stayed self-published. What was the reason? I mean, I know that staying self-published is much better, but I would like you to explain it to the listeners.
That's fine. Yes, I have been approached, and I'm not the kind of author that say I absolutely will never go to traditional, because that, I don't know what the future can hold, but I do know for now, self-publishing has gotten me where I am, and I'm completely content with that. So, I do know that I wouldn't mind working with some publishers in the past, because it is difficult. Now, as an indie author, you won't see your books in Walmart or Targets or other big chains, because those big chains do not carry indie authors. So you have to just accept that your sales are digital, and there are successful, digital sales are 100% viable, and they're well worth it. So, when you say that you're an author and your friends go, "Oh, well, are you in Walmart?" No, then a lot of people who don't read go, "Oh, well, then you're not successful," but that isn't the case. That isn't the case. You've got number one bestselling, like you've mentioned, you're number one on Amazon. That is a huge step. You as an author know what it takes to get there. Yeah. And so, and you just kind of have to, again, use that as fuel when people say, "Oh, well, you're not a successful author then." So, just move past it and say, well, the indie world is growing and it will always grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe in that too. So what kind of promo tools are you using to promote your books? Because, it's easy to launch a book, but it's difficult to keep the ongoing sales. What are you doing in that respect?
Well, it's been terrible this last month, because we've been moving. So, and I've released 2 books, and I'm actually going to release a 3rd one this month. So as far as promotion goes, I'm terrible right now. All I have done is put it on Facebook and Twitter and, Google and Goodreads, those kind of things. But normally for my book releases, I'll have a huge giveaway. For my release for Secret Sauce, I did a huge giveaway at cookbook.com. So, they're good. You can do giveaways that are specific for the book that you're writing. Like that one was about a cook or a chef. And so I gave away kitchen items, a gift card for kitchen items. You can give away Kindles if you want to put the time and the effort in. Like I've given away a Kindle, I've given away gift cards. So giveaways are a great way to get your readers back interactive. Like if they haven't read anything of yours for a while, you can do a giveaway. Hey, if you enter, you can win this. The other thing is I post teasers. They love teasers, and I always do it like a cliffhanger teaser. You can do pictures, like here's what this character looks like in my mind, those kind of things.
Yeah, I think I've seen those on Facebook. The things, and the cover.
The cover
revealing.
reveal.
Yes, it's very nice and interesting as well.
Yes.
And so I presume you have an email list, right?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. And they can sign up when they go to my website at jillsanders.com. If they sign up to my newsletter, they'll get a free novella. So that's another thing that draws people in, is they get a free book.
Okay, so your lead magnet is the free book, and then I guess it's a very good marketing step as well, because most probably once they get they find out your writing style and get the taste of your books, then they will know what they will be getting once they purchase the novels, let's say.
Absolutely, yes. As if I'm also a reader. I have been a reader since, I'll be honest, at age 13, I became a speed reader. So, for me to try a new author, I need to taste them first. I need to see what they're like, if I'm going to like their style and their characters. Yeah. And it's a great way to draw people in, because I am a very loyal reader. If I find an author I like, I'll read their next book. I'll buy it before I even know what it's about. So
yeah, and I think most of the readers are such. So it's very interesting, and we can capitalize on that at some point.
Right.
Okay, and as far as I know, you have more than 20 books now already.
Yes. Actually, this is my 18th. I'm writing my 19th. So yes, okay. Almost 20.
Almost 20. So how do you stay productive? How do you make sure that, you get your work done? And because usually, we all know that life comes across and things happen. And, sometimes we even don't really feel like writing so much at that particular day. So what's your writing routine, or how do you make sure that you keep staying productive?
Well, that is a great question. What's funny is I've went to all these conferences, and I listened to all these authors say, you have to, as a writer, you need to write every day, regardless of how you feel. And I will tell you the absolute opposite. It is not that way with me. If I don't feel like writing, I don't write. But when the writing bug hits me, I'll lock myself in the room, and I'm going to admit this. I wrote Breaking Travis in 3 days, and I don't even think I really got up to go to the restroom. I know I showered because you need that refreshness, but it was like the keyboard was almost smoking. Mm-hmm. So there are times that you're not going to write, and then there are times that you're just absolutely need to get a hold of your computer and write every word down. Use those times. If you can, have your spouse take care of the children's or the dogs or whatever you have, and just block yourself off. My family knows that when I'm in here and they hear the keyboard going, just walk past the room, but I've got teenagers, so they're not, little ones anymore, but they know mom's writing. It's, closed door time type thing.
I see. Yeah, very interesting. And do you usually, when you are starting writing the book, of course, you know what you will be writing about, but do you have the whole outline in your mind? You know where you start and where you finish and how you go? Or you leave space for flexibility?
I am 100% flexible. Okay. I know the characters' names, and I search the internet and look at pictures of people and say, oh, this would make a good character. And then I write him or her in. But other than that, I usually have an outline in my head, but I don't tie myself down to it, because as I'm writing, I may change something, and that change always ends up being good or exciting. And if I don't like it, I'll delete it. I have deleted chapters at a time. So
yeah, I see. Yeah, why I'm asking is because I'm doing the same. I don't really have a fixed outline, and many people are absolutely horrified because of that. Like, why you're writing and you don't know what you will be writing next.
I know.
That's just how are you doing that? Especially nonfiction writers, they can't get it at all.
Because I thought something was wrong with me when I saw an interview of J.K. Rowling, and she had a big board and all her little pins and timelines. And I'm like, oh no, I need a timeline. And so I started using the timeline, and it just confused me. I am not good with charts.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, what I'm doing even is like, if I have the general idea of the book I'm writing about, I even sometimes kind of, when you said that you write when you feel like it and when the writing bug hits you, it's just with me, it's when I'm waking up, for example, and I feel like I want to write today for this book, I follow my mood and I write the scene which I am in mood for. So I may even end up writing the book in puzzle pieces, different separate scenes, which later on I put all of them together. And that makes people even more horrified knowing what kind of, unorganized way of writing a book.
Yep. I do have cheat sheets. I always get confused of how old a character is or how many children they've had in the past books or those kind of things. So I make sure that, like if the first book had a couple get together and then, the second book, it's about a different couple, but you hear about the first couple having a kid. The third book, I have to have a note. Oh yeah, what was their kid's name?
Yeah,
so there are cheat sheets, but other than that,
that's because you're writing series, so it's it's a longer time frame. And by the way, when you're writing a series, when do you know that this is the last book of the series? How do you decide that?
I don't. I have 7 of the 7 books in my Pride series, and I desperately want to write the 8th book, but I have a couple other projects before I can do that. And I have promised my readers that I will get the 8th book out. But, it's, if I could write every day, I think I can do it. But after, writing Breaking Travis for 3 days, I had to take a couple days off. And then you have life, we were moving and the kids and stuff like that. So, you've got to just make yourself time as well. So don't just say, okay, I have to work, sun up to sundown every single day. You have to step away, because that's where the creativity comes, is when you're take a walk in the neighborhood and your mind just goes.
Yeah, you open up space for new things coming in.
Yeah. And so, I never really close a series, because you never know, a year from now, I may want to write one more or a dozen more, in that series.
I see. Well, very interesting actually, because I never wrote a series, so for me it's like a completely new area.
Right.
Okay, and so do you have any specifically favorite series out of everything you've written, or you like them equally?
I do have a favorite series. My West series is, I just absolutely love it. And I know for me, Finding Pride, my very first book, will always be my first baby, So you always love it, but it's a love-hate relationship, because I've grown so much since I've written that book that I can't even read that book. I get frustrated at myself, but I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to rewrite it, but I can't. And you don't need to go back, because your readers will really grow with you. And so for me, the West series is just, I love the sister aspect. There are 5 girls in my family and 2 boys, and my sisters are the world to me. And just like my kids, they mean so much to me that I loved writing sisters into a book like this, into a series. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you get a little bit of sister and, and just loving their story. Plus, I was raised in Washington State on a farm. And so, my country girl came out in that series, which I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. So what would you advise newbie writers? I mean, what would be like the main several tips that looking back at your journey, you would just, advise them?
Well, there's a recipe for what I'll give you. It's write, edit, edit. So, find a good editor. I know that's hard, but there are sites out there that you can find people on, Goodreads and stuff like that. Have them edit it, reread what they've edited to make sure that it's what you want it to be. Mm-hmm. And then, put it out there. If you need to find a couple different editors, do that. If you're still getting reviews that, you need to rewrite your book or you need to learn English, those kind of things, which, there are trolls out there that'll just, read your book and just dish you and don't respond to those people. They're living for your response. They want you to engage them. So just, move past the negatives. And, you can respond to the positives and say, oh, I'm so happy that you enjoyed your book. I am ecstatic when people say, oh my goodness, I loved your book. It helped me through this. Finding Pride, my very first book, was about an abused woman who gets a second chance. So I love hearing people say, you really helped me during a dark time, those kind of things. But I also just love people saying, oh, that was such an uplifting story. To me, it's just, I love when people enjoy the book. So definitely editing is the key. Write what you love and write what you know. That is the number one rule in writing, is write what you know, but also write what you love. Because if you don't love it and if you can't get behind what you're writing, then your readers are going to pick up on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you very much. The least I can do is go and read your books because I have to be honest, I haven't read them yet. So.
That's fine. That's fine.
And thank you so much for spending the time with me and my listeners and
You're
sharing such an inspirational story, because basically I presume that most of my listeners and me as well are just, in the stage where you were in the very beginning. So it's very inspirational to see that people who started just like us, have succeeded so well.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Well, that was it. I truly believe that this was a really inspirational interview. At least I was inspired by Jill Sanders' story. So before I leave you, I would like to say that if you have any kind of writer struggles, be that completing your book or anything connected to writing or self-publishing or marketing your books or selling them or finding readers, anything that comes to your mind, you can write me at ani@anialexander.com, ani@anialexander.com, and schedule a 30-minute free Skype call. We will have a chat and we'll see if I could help you with anything. And maybe together we will come up with a bestseller which will have your name on its cover. What I can't do instead of you, though, is write. That is the part that you have to complete yourself. And that is something I encourage you to do right away. If you haven't written anything yet today, go and do that now. Make sure that you've written something today, be that a blog post, be that part of your book, even a postcard or anything. Just make sure you create something. You put words next to each other and come up with something that you've created from scratch. Take care, have a nice day, and I wish you lots of writing success.